Press and took a hit in their terms of trying to get a chance to reach the college football playoff. Baylor is still undefeated in the Big 12. The All-State playoff predictor, my buddy Brad Edwards, pointing out that the biggest beneficiaries from Oklahoma's loss this past weekend, the losers of the Alabama-LSU game and the Ohio State-Penn State game coming up, at least in terms of the All-State playoff predictor, should those teams remain unbeaten and that be their only loss. So, Jesse, as you look at Oklahoma and Baylor, contenders at the top of the Big 12 right now, who do you have more faith in?
Oklahoma, because I know they can score every week with Lincoln Riley calling plays, and Jalen Hurts is still playing at a Heisman caliber, guys. He basically threw for 400 yards and ran for 100 yards with 4 touchdowns, losing against Kansas State. The defense was the disappointment. They looked like the defense we've seen the last couple of years that prevented this team from competing for national championships. I'm going to attribute it to a hiccup because they looked so much better the first half of the season. But, David, they've got to get better because, Joey, coming up, they still got Brock Purdy. They still have an explosive Baylor offense, and they still have to defend against Chuba in Oklahoma State. So this defense has to improve.
Yeah, I agree with you on feeling better about Oklahoma, but I could be swayed to Baylor. As we've seen in the past, I like this Baylor team. I think Matt Rule is a terrific coach, and I just jumped on them a couple years too early. But when you look at this Baylor team, they're a solid football team, but not really dynamic in any particular area. And we've seen Oklahoma be dynamic on the offensive side for years now. Defensively, we thought this was a better Oklahoma team. And I always say about football, you don't know what your weakness is until you play a team that is good enough to expose that weakness. Well, Oklahoma this weekend ran up against a team that could run the ball physically at them, and they weren't physical enough to stop Kansas State, and it ended up costing them in the end. I don't know many teams that win football games when a team rushes for 5 or 6 touchdowns in a game. With all that being said, I still like Oklahoma's chances to outscore the rest of their opponents.
Oklahoma the last 3 years now has lost a game in October. They've done it the last 3 years, and you kind of go, why? But the defense will give up a little bit. But this offense is not what it was in the past. And I know, Jesse, Jalen Hurts put up big numbers. He has to run the football a lot. Where's the other running backs helping him out? Where's the offensive line that we've seen in the past that just mauled people and got people out of the way, that created big holes? And then offensively, they could do so daggum much, man. They could stretch you with so many big plays in the passing game. It's not quite the same offensively. Listen, the defense I didn't think played as atrocious as we've seen in the past. I mean, we've seen some bad defense in the past from Oklahoma, but I trust Oklahoma's offense to continue to put up points. But Oklahoma's not an offense that's as good as it was in the past couple years to me.
I'll say Oklahoma as well. It kind of reminds me, in honor of the NCAA's announcement today that name and likeness will be afforded to the players. It reminds me of thinking about the NCAA video game. Joey and I used to put in about 8 to 10 hours a day back in the day, and I used to be the steady Eddie. I was the Baylor, and Joey was the OU, the flash and dash, and so I'll give Oklahoma the edge. Joey and I were close. It was close, but Joey had just a slight edge over me in that video game.
Kirk, I just want to make sure, though, Joey, that was after Joey stayed late after practice to throw routes, right, against there.
Joey, oh, of course. Let me just tell you how annoying Joey was. Okay. Let me just tell you real quick. I'd be sitting there playing with Oklahoma or Florida State or LSU or Ohio State, and he'd look at me and my buddies on the couch. He's like, just give me Bowling Green or, whoever you want to give me is fine. It doesn't matter. And then he would beat us with or like whoever.
That's so bad.
It was annoying. It was really annoying.
Now that I hear that part of the story, Joey, I'm even more upset that you wouldn't at